GearNetwork.com.
This is a Gear Network production. Father's Day is Sunday, June 18th, and if you haven't purchased a gift yet, head on over to our Amazon store at shopgear.com and find that perfect gift for your father, stepfather, or father figure in your life. Everything from lawnmowers, tools, grilling supplies, and more can be purchased and delivered right to his door, gift wrapped with a card, and everything, the whole nine. It's awesome. And if your dad is an electronic junkie like me, we have Amazon Fire tablets starting at just $49.99, and for a limited time, buy any 3 all-new Fire tablets, and Amazon's going to knock off an additional 20% from your order. We also have gift cards in any denomination, too, if Dad wants to pick out his own gift. What's more, by using our shopgear.com link to go to Amazon and make your purchases, you help support this program at no additional cost to you. That's right, no gimmicks, my babies. Just use our link and shop Amazon. Have it delivered in 2 days or less with Prime. Make Dad happy and support a small business all at once. Win-win-win for everybody. As always, thank you for bookmarking, saving, and sharing our Amazon link at shopgear.com.
You're listening to Better Live Than Dead on the Gear Radio Network.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Better Live Than Dead podcast. This one is episode 105. We've called it the Antipincast because guess what? We're going to talk today about Victor Antipin. We're going to talk about the Rochester Americans. We're going to talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs and the Stanley Cup Final. So, before we get started, though, I want to introduce ourselves. You should know us by now, but I am Ryan Wolfe at WolfeBLTD. Joining me on the line, as always, with these casts, Brayton at BJ Wilson WGR. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. If you don't know who we are by now, you must be living under a rock.
You must be the dead portion of the Better Live Than Dead, I would have to think. I'm sitting over here at my humble apartment abode. This actually, too, I didn't mention this before the podcast, but this may be the last podcast for probably a month or so, a little less than a month. I've actually have about, let me check let me kind of brag here for a second. It's not really bragging because the amount of work I've had to do and still have to do is trash, but 22 more days until I move into my my home with my wonderful fiance, so I'm looking forward to that.
Woohoo.
Packing has been garbage. Buying a house overall has been pretty terrible. I suggest doing it because we're going to save a ton of cash, just house or mortgage compared to rent in Batavia. But that being said, the whole process really sucks a whole lot. There's no doubt about it. It's not a fun process. I mean, maybe it gets better as you move forward, but the people I've spoken to who have purchased multiple homes have said no. It is what it is. So that's exciting. But with that, the reason I mention that is because I think after this podcast completes today, I'm going to pack up all my podcasting equipment because there's a little. I guess I won't even say it. I'm not going to lie to you guys. There's a lot of stuff here at my little workstation at my apartment right now. So. We're gonna wrap it. I mean, if something big happens, we'll make it work. But for right now, this is probably gonna be the last podcast for a month or so. We'll kind of take a little bit of a hiatus, as if we don't take a month hiatus between our podcasts. Anyways, don't judge us. We're busy people.
We still love you guys.
We do still love you guys. We still love to talk hockey. We love that you listen. We appreciate you. But I want to start today with I guess we could just call him. And the reason I say this is because a coworker mentioned it to me. But the man, the myth, the legend. Victor Antipin is finally under contract with the Buffalo Sabres. We say the man, the myth, the legend because it's been almost like the guy was a myth for a while because he existed, but not in our hockey universe. But now he does. Now he's a member of the Buffalo Sabres, a 1-year entry-level contract because of his age, and it was his first NHL contract, his first professional contract. So I know we talked about it before, Brayton, but now that he's under contract, what are your thoughts on the Buffalo Sabres picking up Victor Antipin?
Well, it's about time that they finally got him signed. I mean, I understand that there's been some complications or just because he's been busy playing hockey so much, just excuse me. He had the KHL Cup, the Gagarin Cup Final. Then he took a little bit of a break. Then he was right back to the World Championship. And during that time, Tim Murray got fired and all hell was breaking loose here in Buffalo. But, I mean, it's really good that we got him signed. It's great that Jason Botterill followed through on it and actually continued the process. And Botterill seems to really like a guy like Victor Antipin. And what's not to like about him? He skates hard. He's small, but he's definitely a guy that definitely doesn't get knocked down very often. He's very strong on his feet. He's physical when he needs to be physical. He's good offensively. He's reliable defensively. I mean, it's everything that the Sabres have really wanted in a defenseman. And not only that, but I mean, he can move the puck quite well. So, I mean, Antipin can certainly be a top 4 defenseman on this team right now just because, the Sabres blue line is pretty much a big giant mess at this point. But, with Antipin, I think that, he'll bring something to the power play that, really wasn't here when, for the past 2 years. But, because in the KHL, he was playing like high slot on the power play, which is just unique. It's something that I'd like to actually see him try to do here. And, I think that Victor Antipin will definitely bring something to the Sabres that, has been longed for a really long time back on the blue line. Not only that, but also just in general on the offensive and defensive side of the puck.
Now, I wrote about this over at thehockeyraiders.com. I talked to our good friend, our good friend from Beyond the Blade. He kind of is all over the place. He used to write for Better Live Than Dead. He's written for a few other places. And I'm sorry, man, if I mispronounce your name. But I believe it's Avis or Avis.
I think it's Avis Kalninch.
Avis, okay. We'll just go with that one because I know you've spoken with him too. But if he listens, he'll probably be laughing at us right now because we're stupid American people. But I talked to him about kind of what to expect because he's been really the go-to guy for everybody when it comes to Victor Antipin because he's stationed overseas. He gets to watch the KHL in real time where we have to adjust our schedules to watch him. But essentially, he said, Victor Antipin's a good puck moving two-way defenseman who can play in all situations, great pair of skates, not the biggest guy, can throw a hit. He's a great power play specialist, which the Buffalo Sabres, despite having the best power play last year, certainly can use some more depth because honestly, if it wasn't for a few guys in that power play unit, it may not have been as good. He mentioned he's a mobile guy who can create chances, but the one thing that I've seen, and Avis mentioned this, but also other people have mentioned it too, the easy comparison of Nikita Zaitsev. And I'm not 100% sure I want to jump on that yet, but, he does go on to say that it may be something where Antipin starts off in the bottom pair but ends up as a third or fourth defenseman, which that's what the Buffalo Sabres need right now because you figure with Bogosian, with McCabe, with Ristolainen, you throw in Antipin and Josh Georges at the moment because we don't know what they're going to do with Georges, but we can talk about that in just a moment. But there are five NHL defensemen right there, so you figure maybe you start Antipin with a Josh Georges on a bottom pair and then move him up to the second pair with Zach Bogosian because I'm assuming at this point, unless there's a big trade made, and I'm not going to bank on that just yet, but if there's not a big trade made, your opening top two defensemen are probably going to be McCabe and Ristolainen. That would make the most sense. Now,
right.
And this can kind of actually transition to another topic of conversation regarding head coaching because it all really depends on head coaching as to where guys will play in the system. But I certainly think that, it's... I know you mentioned Jason Botterill sticking to his guns and making sure they got Antipin signed, but I almost want to, kind of give a kudos and a tip of the cap to Victor Antipin himself because after, he did commit to signing with the Buffalo Sabres when Tim Murray was the general manager, as we all know. But after Tim Murray was fired, Victor Antipin said, no, I'm a man of my word. I agreed to sign a contract with the Buffalo Sabres. I'm sticking to my word. I'm going to Buffalo. And I mean, worst case scenario, it's a 1-year deal for him. If it doesn't work out, he can go back to the KHL. Or
he can
he'll be an RFA. He can sign somewhere else. So it's something. Will he be an RFA after this year?
Yeah, he will be.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
The thing that I see with Antipin is I'd honestly rather prefer him to be the second left-handed defenseman behind Jake McCabe. Because obviously, Ristolainen and McCabe had a really good chemistry last year. They produced a lot of Buffalo's points and goals when they were both on the ice together. I'd rather see Victor Antipin with a guy that the Sabres try to bring in, whether that be, I don't know. I mean, there's so many mocks of who the Sabres could try and trade for. But I mean, I want to see a guy that the Sabres can bring in that is, I don't care if he's a right-handed shot or left-handed shot, playing with Antipin, and if one of those guys can move to the right side, then that's fine. But, you know, with you saying Josh Georges, it just kind of made me shudder a little bit, just because the fact that Josh Georges is still on this team makes me a little worried.
Well, yeah, and he has 1 year left on his deal. Jason Botterill has talked about how he wants a mobile, fast-moving defense, which Victor Antipin checks those boxes with the fattest of markers, because as our friend Ava said again, you know, you can see that he's mobile, fast-moving, can get around, can get back, can jump into the play, but also get back into the play at the same time, where he won't get caught too often. Josh Georges doesn't fit that. So, you know, do you let Georges toil away on, you know, as your 7 and eat up cap space, or do you buy him out and let him eat cap space this year, next year? I mean, that's a decision that has to be made, but I mean, it's been very popular over at capfriendly.com that Georges has been a strong buyout contender. So we'll see in a couple weeks here. I mean, it's almost, you know, we're a few days away from June, which right after the Cup Final, the buyout period begins. We've got the expansion draft is only a couple weeks away. The NHL draft is only a couple weeks away. So lots of stuff set to happen in a very short time. I mean, the one thing I want to talk to you about, though, right now, because we were mentioning coaching, and we can kind of keep this short because it's been talked about ad nauseum throughout, you know, other podcasts, other blogs, and everyone kind of has their own fit right now. Are you more of a go get Rick Tocchet and maybe have him help the offense, or are you more of a go get Phil Housley because of what he's done molding those Nashville defensemen into form? And we've seen how well Nashville's defense has played up to this point. So are you more offense with like Rick Tocchet, or more defense with like Phil Housley?
I think, honestly, I don't care. I think that whoever Jason Botterill thinks is the best candidate for the job, whoever he thinks is the guy that can turn this team around, who can help them out the most and help them get back to success, I'm fine with whoever he decides. Even if it's Todd Reirden, who in Washington was very good with working with, I believe he was working with the power play there, and he's more of a. Sorry if it's all muddled in my head and everything.
You're okay. I was just gonna. I can pick that up from there because I actually did write a little about Todd Reirden. Yeah, he's been fantastic with the defense. It's one of those. It's same with Phil Housley. It's where the name. I mean, Phil Housley's name jumps off the paper because of Buffalo, because he played in Buffalo. He's drafted by Buffalo, Hall of Famer. So there's no doubt about it. There's going to be that stigma always attached to him that, you know, and it's one of those things too where when they brought back Ted Nolan. And I'm going to kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but when they brought back Ted Nolan, that was more of a nostalgia hire. If they bring in Phil Housley, that won't be. It may be a little bit of a nostalgia hire, but that's going to be more of, we have a young defense. We need someone who can take these defenders and push Jake McCabe and Rasmus Ristolainen to the next level. Find someone who can coach up Zach Bogosian to make him better than what he is right now. Because again, hearing Jason Botterill say he wants a mobile defense, it should be music to guys like Zach Bogosian's ears, because, you know, Zach Bogosian may not be the best defender, but the one thing he can do fantastically is skate, and that's what Bogosian should want, is a coach who wants him to skate and use his skating ability to his strength. Because right now we saw with Dan Bilesma that was not the case, and Zach Bogosian, there were times where he flashed some signs of some greatness, and then there were other times where you were like, hey, how is this guy in the National Hockey League? So back to Todd Reirden, though. He's worked, like you said, worked with the power play, and worked with the defenseman.
Yeah, though, right? That's what I thought when I first, you know, heard about him and everything, that he was more of a defensive guy. But let me
get some info popped up here real quick while you're talking.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, I'm just a guy that's just like, just get me the best candidate, get me the best guy who Jason, you feel is going to turn this team around and get them back, and work with Jack Eichel, work with Sam Reinhart, work with Ryan O'Reilly, work with all the guys that are the core pieces of this new team that will be here for many years to come. Because, I mean, I don't want to have another coaching change after 2 seasons. I mean,
exactly.
I know we're going to get into the Rochester coaching change in a little bit, but I mean, if you look at Rochester, they've had like 5 different coaches or 7 different coaches or something like that. I mean, it's just a crazy amount of turnover since Terry Pegula took over the team in 2011 and, you know, became their affiliate of the Sabres again. So
Sorry, Brayton. The one thing about Phil Housley, I'm going through this article real fast. He came from a high school hockey team, and I remember because I believe I emailed back in 2007. I want to say it was. Let me check that really quick. I emailed Phil Housley when he worked for a high school out in Minnesota. And I was like, I'm a big fan. I'd love to get your autograph, whatever. Sends me his address. I sent him a card. He signed and sent back, no problem. Excuse me. So I'm certainly just personal feelings, but also, excuse me, actually, this Starbucks, I'm drinking a strawberry acai, and it's killing me, man. I'm just over here burping up a storm. March. I forgot for some reason. March is the third month. March 2nd, 2007, took 7 days. Phil Housley autograph. So I enjoy him a lot. He's a great hockey player, nice guy to me. But the thing about it that I like so much, you get Predators defenseman Ryan Ellis talk to Yahoo Sports Josh Cooper, at the time Yahoo Sports Josh Cooper. He says, Phil's been awesome since day one he came in here. I think a lot of the D, he was a similar player as the way he thought the game, I guess. Thought the game, that this quote is very muddled. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read as fast as I can. So just the little things, talking to him day to day, day in, day out, the knowledge that he brings, obviously his numbers, the games played, the points, all that. But it's so easy to listen to a guy like that and take what he has to say and understand it and learn it from him. So they say that he's very, for just judging from that quote and more in that article, he's a smart guy, easy to work with. He tries to help the players mold their best game and then push it from there. But I like when you mentioned Todd Reirden for a few reasons. First off, the Capitals are fantastic in shot suppression, which the Buffalo Sabres have not been very good at shot suppression.
No.
Washington led the league last year in suppressed shots. But also the thing, so there's a check there. He's a good defensive coach, works well with good players, with star players and young players. But also the thing here that really kind of highlights his name and kind of puts a couple stars next to it. Spent 6 years in the Penguins organization. Previously coached the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. In the time he had with the Penguins, 36 of his former players reached the NHL, including 15 defensemen. So maybe you go up for a little, you come back for a little, but still, he has experience working with kids, graduated them to the National Hockey League. He also has experience working with National Hockey players and still allowing them to be fantastic. Now, granted, Washington does have a bevy of fantastic defensive talent, but you can. It's one of those things. You bring a horse to water, you can't make him drink. You can teach the defenseman how to do it, and they can execute it properly. So the shot suppressions and stuff like that, the defense is fantastic. I'm sorry if I kind of got off track with that cliche there, but essentially he's coached them up, and they're doing their job. So it looks good on both sides. So I mean, I like the idea of hiring an offensive coach, but if you get whoever you get, like you said, Brayton, I think it'll be fine. But I'm definitely on board with the idea of Phil Housley, just because, again, if we're gonna go nostalgia, let's go all in. I know it's like I said, it's not gonna be a big nostalgia hire because he's a good coach, but let's just go all in. Why not?
I just don't want to go with a coach that you kind of have to reach for. You kind of have to say well, he has been a coach before, but we like his intangibles, but we necessarily don't know. Rick Tocchet's been a coach in the NHL before. Everybody will say, well, he didn't have success in both places. But then again, he's been with the Pittsburgh Penguins for the past few years, and the Penguins have been very successful. He's working under a guy like Mike Sullivan, who's a good coach in this league. And sorry, real quick, just to interject here, and that's one thing, Brayton. You bring it up, Mike Sullivan. Who hired Mike Sullivan? Jason Botterill. So whoever Jason Botterill hires, he's already shown. He's got a couple good hires there in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Whoever he chooses to hire, it's not going to be like he gets hired and then goes, I forgot how to hire a good coach. He has a relatively good idea of what he wants, what he's looking for, the style of play. I feel like, and maybe this was a little on the Pagulas and less on Tim Murray. We may never know. But it always seemed to me odd that Tim Murray wanted an upbeat, fast style of play, and then they bring in Dan Bilesma, who is, as we saw, a system guy who wants to slow the game down, who wants to kind of
lock up the center of the ice, the between the red lines, and just kind of make it miserable to play against the Buffalo Sabres. It obviously didn't work. It was miserable to watch the Buffalo Sabres play, but not to play against them. There's a nice little shot right there. But I hope that Jason Botterill sticks to, this is the type we want to play, so we're going to bring in a guy who can coach that system. Because you know what? Even if the Sabres don't make the playoffs next year, be fun to watch. Because it's so goddamn hard and frustrating to watch Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, Evander Kane, all just kind of be like, you can do what you want and you can make it work, but it's going to be really tough to watch. Mm-hmm. Like, just take the reins off, take the training wheels off the kids, and just see what happens. See what happens.
Right. Yeah.
But
I mean, it's just like thinking about the coaching search, just hearing some of the names, and like I said before, it's just like I want a guy that is going to be able. And I mean, what I was getting at next was a guy like Phil Housley has put in his work, especially with Nashville for the past few years, and has turned that defense. Even with the turnover that they had on defense, they traded Shea Weber for PK Subban, completely turning that around.
And they got better. I mean, I know PK Subban's better than Shea Weber is, but
exactly. And I'm trying to remember when exactly they brought him back. I don't think that Housley was there when they lost Ryan Suter. I don't think so, but anyways, I mean, that team's gone through some turnover back on the blue line, and he's done quite well. He's done very well back there, and he's put in the work to be a coach in the NHL, I think. And if he gets hired by the Sabres, I'd be absolutely ecstatic that he's here and that he's, going to be working with the defense. And quite honestly, I mean, I think the three main candidates should be Tocchet, Reardon, and Housley. I mean, Jacques Martin has been in the NHL for so many years. He's had success, but then again, he's a systematics guy, just like Dan Bilesma kind of is. He's a guy that is going to play a boring style of hockey. I think that his systems have worked better than Dan Bilesma's, but I just wouldn't trust Jacques Martin with the coaching job.
Well, that and Jacques Martin, I know Mike Sullivan was talking about the importance of Jacques Martin on his staff, and I don't think that Jacques Martin's a guy that they would let go. No matter what, they would make sure he stayed because he plays an important role. Despite the fact that Mike Sullivan has coached the Pittsburgh Penguins to their second straight Stanley Cup final, I still think that it's like in football or even in hockey. In football, you find me a good coach, find me a good quarterback, I'll show you a good coach. Find me a good goaltender, I'll show you a good coach. Or find me a good coach, I'll show you a good goaltender. Whatever. You're just as good as the people you surround yourself with, essentially. So if you go out there and have a terrible staff, you're probably not going to be very good. So he's got a good staff. Keep it together. But the one thing I want to mention really quick, because again, we're talking turnover, we're talking coaching changes, we're talking switching everything up. Not surprisingly, Jason Botterill fires Dan Lambert from the Rochester Americans after 2 seasons, 2 really unsuccessful seasons. More or less because I feel like in my personal experience of watching them, and kind of keeping up with the Amherst, which it's a lot more difficult now that they fired Kevin Klubja at the Democrat and Chronicle, which still it blows my mind because he's a fantastic writer. But I guess they have priorities in hockey, and Rochester's not a priority, whatever. But the one thing about the Amherst and the Sabres, there still is a disconnect between the organizations, which blows my mind. Because again, I know we keep talking about the Penguins, but what's Buffalo trying to do? Buffalo's trying to mimic the Penguins organization. And why not? Because you see how much success they've had in the minor leagues, getting players to graduate from the minors to the NHL, plus the NHL. I mean, that speaks for itself, the amount of success they've had in the National Hockey League. But there's been a disconnect. The message in Buffalo is not the same as the message in Rochester. The coaching in Buffalo is not the same as it is in Rochester. So, how is it that when guys come from Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and they come up to Pittsburgh, they don't miss a beat, but when they're in Rochester and they come up to Buffalo, they're lost. Right. You've got to coach the same, maybe not the same system, but you want to have the same idea. So when Justin Bailey's scoring 20 goals in Rochester and comes up to Buffalo, he doesn't look like he's never played professional hockey in his life or something like that. You want to make it look like, there's a seamless transition. And I feel like that's been missing between the Rochester Americans and the Buffalo Sabres for quite a while now. So I'm not surprised to see Jason Botterill let Dan Lambert go. I mean, there's going to be quite a turnover in Rochester. You know, they're going to have a new head coach, a new coaching staff, for that matter, an actual general manager that's not the Sabres GM, which will be a huge change. Someone who can actually focus on the team and make sure that they are, you know, a very good complement to the Buffalo Sabres, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what you want. You need to have those depth players that are ready to go, those prospects that are ready to go when it's time to go. But the one thing I wanted to mention to you, Brayton, because again, we're talking about bringing back old names, bringing back popular players who are now, I mean, because again, Botterill deserved it, so that's not just let's hire an ex-Sabre to hire an ex-Sabre. If they hire Phil Housley, that's not the same thing. It's a deserved position. The one thing I want to mention to you about the Amherst, which Kevin Aklubja, again, he brought this up on Facebook a couple days ago. What about Chris Taylor, ex-Rochester American? He has arguably one of the most popular Rochester Americans ever. But the thing is, this isn't any drop in a pond or whatever. This is he's got some coaching experience. He coached. He was Rochester's development coach in 2011. After he retired, he worked with the Amherst for, I think it says here, 4 seasons. And the last year he coached as an assistant with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. So he's been a coach for 5 or 6 years. Played the game real well. He was always kind of seen as like a player's coach, like a player/coach, I should say. Where like he on the ice, he was like a general. Like he knew what to do, when to do, how to do it. May not have always been the greatest. I mean, he did 519 games. He had 481 points. He was a team captain at one point in time. He's an Amherst Hall of Famer. I mean, if you want to bring, and I don't know if this is going to be a thing, I'm kind of just running with it, but if you want to bring fans back in the Rochester area, a guy like Chris Taylor would be perfect. And I think on the hockey side of things, he can bridge the gap between the coaching staff and the players, because not only was he there and has he done it, but he did it well, and that was the type of player he was. So he can. I feel like Chris Taylor might not be a bad idea for Rochester.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad idea for Rochester at all. I mean, he has coaching experience in Rochester too. So, I think that he's definitely a guy that could be a candidate. I've also heard the name that, I don't know if he'd be a perfect candidate or not for the job, but I don't even know if he'd want it. Jay McKee's name I've heard at least once be a guy that could possibly be in consideration for the Amherst job. McKee just recently coached with the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL, and he's a guy that is kind of on the rise. He spent his time in Erie, and Connor McDavid was playing down there. He was an assistant coach down there. Then he went to Kitchener and was an assistant coach before eventually becoming the coach of Kitchener. So, I mean, if the Sabres want to take a look at McKee too, I mean, that's fine too as the coach of the Amherst. But, I mean, I definitely think that Chris Taylor should be in consideration just because, yes, he's a Rochester favorite. He knows the city really well. I think he understands the game very well at the same time. But, excuse me, I'm just really bad with my voice today. But
you're okay.
But with Chris Taylor, I think that would definitely be a viable option for Rochester just because of all those intangibles. Plus, I mean, he just recently spent time coaching I can't remember where he just recently was for coaching. He was either with the Pittsburgh organization or he was with the Toronto organization. I can't quite put my thought on it where he just recently was. But, I mean, if he's with the Pittsburgh organization, then there you go. There's another tie to Jason Botterill. So, I mean, Chris Taylor seems like a good option. There's a couple others out there, but, first off, we just got to get a Sabres head coach first, and then we'll see where it goes in Rochester.
Absolutely, yeah. And Jay McKee here, he was an assistant coach for the Amherst. I know that was a 1-year thing, but he ended up, he has the tie to Rochester. Obviously, played for Buffalo. Spent some time with Pittsburgh in 2009, 2010, one season. I mean, he's got, so the highs are there. I mean, there's no doubt about that one. But I mean, I certainly think that at some point in time, it's going to end up being probably a Rochester or a Buffalo tie just for Rochester, but it's not going to be a bad thing. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you're going to have more eyes in the organization, and that's the most important thing, because at this point,
I just found out that he was with Pittsburgh. So there we go. There's
another tie. Yeah, exactly. I certainly think that, I mean, McKee would be great. Chris Taylor would be great. I think no matter what, you're probably going to get an ex-player in Rochester. That's a perfect opportunity for a guy like that. You put him there, you give him the opportunity, you give him the players. I certainly think it's more important now. It's paramount now to get somebody in Rochester that's ready to go, ready to run with these kids, because they're going to start rolling in sooner than later. I mean, Tim Murray didn't have terrible drafts when he was the Sabres general manager, so I certainly think that some talent will be rolling into Rochester, and you got to find the right guy to coach him up, because at this point, Rochester has not been good, and there's no doubt about that one. I mean, there's still some good talent in Rochester, but you just got to find someone who can coach him up, like I said, and we'll keep an eye on that one. And maybe sometime in the near future we can get Kevin Aklubja on here, and we can talk about whoever they end up hiring, because I know even though he is no longer employed by the Democrat and Chronicle, he's still a really good guy to talk about with Amherst hockey. So be more than happy to do that, hopefully sometime soon. But I do want to ask you, because we're running a little low on time. First off, how, with Ottawa being so bad, because we all know Ottawa's not a good team, was it luck? Was it the trap? Or was it a bit of both that got them almost to the Stanley Cup Finals?
I think there's two main factors that got them to the Stanley Cup Finals, or that got them to the Eastern Conference Finals, excuse me. Two main factors, and then a lot of help and contribution. The number one main factor was obviously Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
He certainly supplanted himself as one of the top 3 defensemen in the NHL after this series. I mean, he was playing the entire final 2 series on 2 fractures in his 1 foot, and it looked like he didn't miss a step. I mean, you want to talk about a guy like Ben Roethlisberger of hockey, where Ben Roethlisberger looks like he tears an ACL, but next week he's out on the field playing. Erik Karlsson, the Ben Roethlisberger of playing through injury in the NHL.
Without being a terrible person.
Without being a terrible person, yes. We will add that in just to save Erik Karlsson's integrity. But the second person that really kept him in was Craig Anderson. Yes, Craig Anderson had a couple of games where he was shaky. He was bad. But Game 6, he brought his A game. He only gave up a goal but stopped 45 shots. And then in Game 7, he was standing on top of his head again, and he was fantastic. I mean, Ottawa wouldn't be where they are without Erik Karlsson and Craig Anderson. And then the supporting cast, where you got guys like Bobby Ryan, who certainly stepped up his game, and for a guy that I think that they thought could have been maybe somebody that would have been exposed for the expansion draft, or a guy that they'd look to try and move in the offseason, or, I mean, if it was favorable for them, maybe even buy out. He stepped up his game. He certainly proved that, hey, my game hasn't gone away. I'm still here. I was just sleeping the entire time. So Mike Hoffman had a decent playoffs, as did Mark Stone. So, those guys were in support. And obviously, Jean-Gabriel Pageau was pretty damn good. I mean, he scored 4 goals in a game against the New York Rangers. But the 2 main guys that really got Ottawa where they were, and if without them they wouldn't have got there, is, of course, Craig Anderson and Erik Karlsson. Without those 2, Ottawa would have been dead in the water probably within the first series.
I want to say that I think Erik Karlsson's the best defender in the world right now, and one of the best players in the world. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible what he can do to transform a hockey team, and
certainly won't argue with that.
It all comes back to Buffalo. Who found Erik Karlsson? Tim Murray.
Yep.
You're welcome. Anyways.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. And I mean, I think I've said this before with you. I think I've said this before on WGR. With Victor Antipin, he does things that I see Erik Karlsson do, and sometimes I think, man, if he can do what Erik Karlsson can do, and by no means am I saying that Victor Antipin is the next Erik Karlsson, but I think that there are certain characteristics of Antipin's game that I see in Erik Karlsson, that I've seen in Erik Karlsson for years, that if Antipin can transition into the NHL and do the same things that Karlsson could do, I mean, what a steal for the Sabres. What a friggin' find. What a steal. And, that would just be a huge upgrade to the blue line if Victor Antipin can at least contribute to the point where he's putting up, some good production. And again, he doesn't have to be Erik Karlsson, but I mean, if he can just make those small little plays that Karlsson can often make, that's a huge upgrade.
Now, speaking of the playoffs, we're going to wrap it up with this Stanley Cup Final, I should say. Stanley Cup Final prediction here. We've got, for the first time in franchise history, the Nashville Predators, which it's been fun to watch through the eyes of good Twitter friend, third man in, Eric Schmitz. He's down in Nashville working for the Predators. It's fantastic to watch through his perspective because Nashville, I mean, they're a very good hockey team, but they've been on an incredible run. I mean, they're the first 16 seed in NHL history to make the finals. Obviously, league ranking because they're still, like I said, they're a fantastic hockey team. They've been a thrill to watch. There's always a Buffalo tie-in. Adam Party, ex-Buffalo Sabres defender, played 4 games for Nashville this year. I don't think he'll get his name on the cup. He won't get his name on the cup if they win, but maybe he'll get a ring. Who knows? And then for Pittsburgh, looking to be the first back-to-back champion since I believe the Detroit Red Wings back in the late 90s to win back-to-back titles, back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. Chad Ruhwedel, ex-Buffalo Sabre, has played 34 games this season, 6 playoff games this year as well. He could get his name on the Stanley Cup. And, maybe Tim Murray will get that validation of when he signed him way back when. I'm pretty sure. Was it Ruhwedel or was it Regeer who signed Ruhwedel?
I want to say it was Regeer.
That's what I thought, yeah.
It was the lockout season that they signed him.
Let me see here. I probably should look these things up before I discuss. He was signed at the 2013-2014.
Yep, that would have been Regeer.
So that would have been Regeer. So yeah, maybe Darcy Regeer sitting somewhere just cackling like, I knew it. I knew he could do it. Anyways, going to be a great series, I think, no matter what. But Brayton, real quick, what is your prediction for the Stanley Cup Final?
Well, I mean, I think this was the best outcome, obviously, heading into the Western Conference and the conference final round, looking at the matchups and, would you have rather had the Ducks and the Senators in it, rematch of the 2007 series? I think that would have been the worst case scenario. Would you have rather have had Pittsburgh and Anaheim, which would have been a decent matchup, or Nashville and Ottawa, which would have been like two teams that are not exactly popular in the NHL, but at the same time, it would be fun. I think this is the best matchup. I think it's the most exciting matchup. You're pretty much putting speed against speed, skill against skill, because both teams have the speed, have the skill. It's all going to come down to, and I talked about it on Friday with Adam Vingan from the Tennessean on WGR. We talked about what was so successful with Nashville this year, and he said depth, and that's the thing. That it's the same thing with Pittsburgh. It's depth. Both teams have very good depth, and I think that if teams can stay healthy and continue to have those depth guys contribute, like a Pontus Aberg for Nashville, I think if they can get that depth to create some offense and produce and be able to help out and contribute, I think that whoever gets the most depth out of their organization will certainly help and will win the cup. But for my prediction, I'm going to go with Nashville. I think Nashville is going to win in 6 games. That home ice advantage that they have is incredible. If they could get at least one win on the road, I think that's all they would really need. And, if they get to 6 games and they're up 3-2, I would bet money on it that Nashville closes it out at home, just because that building is a riot. I mean, if you watched any of the games this year at home, and I'm urging people to watch the Stanley Cup Finals when they are in Nashville, watch the building, listen to the building, watch what they do, hear what they do. It's incredible. And I think that if the series is 3-2 in favor of Nashville, heading back to Nashville for Game 6, game over. Series is over, and I think Nashville will win.
Yeah, I certainly don't disagree with you on that one. I mean, Nashville's always been a place for me that I want to go to. I want to see a game in Nashville. But after this postseason, it's kind of moved its way up the list a lot quicker, that's for sure, because it looks like a fantastic time, not only to watch a great hockey team, but to just the experience as well, the atmosphere, because we haven't seen an atmosphere like that in Buffalo in a very long time, if ever. Well, I wouldn't say if ever, but a very, very long time for that matter. But I did listen to your interview, so I'll kind of piggyback off what you were saying from Friday on WGR with Adam Vingan of the Tennessean, like you said. But I certainly think that the depth will be a factor. But for me, it's going to be can Nashville's defense handle Pittsburgh's explosive offense? Can they maybe not necessarily eliminate, but shut down Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and handle them very well? I mean, PK Subban has done a fantastic job with top lines and stars, other teams' stars throughout the playoffs. Can it continue in the final? Because if it can, the dream run of Nashville may end up with a Stanley Cup. And I certainly think, like you said, Brayton, Nashville in 6. That was my prediction over at the HockeyWriters.com. I'm going to stick with it. Nashville in 6. And if Pittsburgh wins, I'm not surprised. If Nashville wins, I'm not surprised. This is first time in a while where I'm watching a series and a Stanley Cup final. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? If either side wins, it's deserved. I wouldn't be mad about either. I mean, I would rather see Nashville win than Pittsburgh for I guess rivalry reasons, if you will. But if Pittsburgh wins, cool. If Nashville wins, even better. So I think we're in for a treat, and we'll certainly report back and we'll tweet about it and we'll tell y'all how we feel. But both got Nashville in 6. We'll see how that one lasts in due time. But I do want to say here real quick before we go, because I almost forgot to mention this. First off, again, I'm Ryan Wolfe at WolfeBLTD. Brayton is at BJWilsonWGR on Twitter. Sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable in my wooden chair over here. But you can also listen to the Better Live Than Dead podcast not only at BLTDsports.com through Spreaker. You can also listen to it on the Spreaker app. You can listen to it through Google Play Music. You can listen to us on iTunes. But I also found out too, if you download the iHeartRadio app or have the iHeartRadio app, in the top right you hit the little search, the little magnifying glass, type in Gear Network. That's GERE Network, and we'll come up right there in the iHeartRadio app. So if you don't want to download Spreaker or don't have Google Play Music or iTunes or whatever, but you have the iHeartRadio app, you can find us there, and you can listen to all of our podcasts any point in time you'd like to. But with that being said, Brayton, I appreciate you joining me this wonderful Sunday afternoon.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And we'll have to do this again sometime soon, hopefully in person in the new Wolf Den Studios Part 2 in my new home once I get everything all put together and built and all that. So making projects for myself before I've even moved in. It's a smart idea. But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you again for listening. As always, we are better live than dead.
And you are not.
He's been on the podcast long enough because he's finally picked that up. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Have a wonderful weekend.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.